actually. So the power input factor, so or it's also called as a work done factor. It is the ratio of your actual work done to, we call it as an ideal. Okay, so ideal work done. Okay, fine. Now, so if I call WEA as actual and WI as ideal, so I can call W actual is equal to your power input factor, work done factor divided by multiplied by your ideal. That means if VW2 into U2, say your ideal, usually what we take actually, your ideal is your VW2 into U2. Okay, this is an ideal. If I multiply this by power input factor, that means I'm unable to get 100%. So as per second law of thermodynamics, we know that it's difficult to convert 100 or to get 100% work or to get 100% conversion. So there is always a quantity which is slightly less than that when you're going for conversion. It may be 98% or 95%, whatever it may be. So what exactly this particular thing will do? See, one thing we have seen that we had slip factor. So both slip factor as well as your work done factor will reduce your work. Okay, that means both slip factor and your power input factor, or what we call it as power factor, whatever it may be, will reduce your work. Okay, will reduce the ideal work. So that's the thing, ideal work. So now we have the expression. What is the expression for the pressure ratio for any compressor? We have this expression P02 by P01 is equal to, okay, VW2 into U2, okay, divided by Cp into your total to total efficiency divided by T01 plus 1, okay, whole to the power of gamma by your gamma minus 1. This expression we have. Now, if I try to consider both your slip factor and your power input factor, the same expression I can write it as, see, your slip factor is sigma and your power input factor is omega. So I'm trying to consider, so what will happen, say for example, your slip factor is 0.95 or 0.95, whatever it may be. So 0.95 into 0.95, I may end up with 0.88 or whatever it may be. Okay, that means both the slip factor and your work done factor will reduce the work requirement of your compressor. So if I call this as expression number 12, okay, this is for a condition. This is for a regular general condition. Say if it is a radial exit condition, okay, if the radial exit condition, what will happen for a radial exit condition? So what is it actually? The radial exit condition means your VW2 is equal to U2, okay, and your beta 2 is equal to 90 degrees. That's the meaning of it. So for this condition, I can write my P02 by P01 is equal to, okay, sigma into omega into U2 square divided by Cp into your total to total efficiency divided by T01 plus 1 whole to the power of gamma by gamma minus 1. So this I'm calling it as expression number 30. Okay. So this is the condition for your expression under 2. One may see, this is already for a condition where your say no whirl condition. What is the meaning of this particular here? This is for a no whirl condition where VW1 is equal to 0. I got it. But both your slip factor and your power input factor will reduce your work. So what will the impact? So I will get a different value of your pressures. So both are in the numerator. So my pressure ratio may slightly reduce. It was supposed to be 15.2. I may get 15.1 or something. So this will reduce your pressure ratio. Suppose I have a condition. So both are in a static conditions. Okay. For static conditions, for static conditions, I can write equation 12 and 13 as, so it will be P2 by P1 is equal to sigma into omega into VW2 into U2, okay, divided by Cp into, it will be static to static efficiency divided by your T1 plus 1 whole to the power of gamma by gamma minus 1. So I am calling that as equation number 14. So for the radial exit condition, this will be P2 by P1 is equal to sigma into omega into U2 square divided by Cp into the static to static efficiency divided by T1 plus 1 whole to the power of gamma by gamma minus 1. I am calling that as equation number 15. So these are some of the things. See, we derived the expression for pressure ratio. Then we looked at the different conditions. Okay. Then we looked at the two factors which are responsible for reduction in one being a slip factor. Then we looked into slip coefficient. Now we are looking at the power input factor, or it's also called as work done factor. So all these things will reduce your work requirement. So then this will have an impact on your pressure ratio also, whether it's a static pressure or your total pressure. So the next topic we are supposed to discuss is the what we call it as a compressibility effect. Okay, we call that as compressibility effect, or the need for pre-whirling. The need for pre-whirling. Okay. So what will happen? Say for example, so I have a sketch here. Okay. Suppose this is your seat. What will happen? See, you have your impeller. This is your hub. So that is the tip, and this is your hub. Okay. So this is your hub, and this is your tip. So I'll be having a blade between your hub and tip. This is how your blades will go. Fine. Now, where the fluid is entering? The fluid is entering near your, we call this as near the hub, we call this as eye of the impeller. Okay. Now, what will happen if suppose, see, here what will happen in this particular eye of the impeller, the pressure is very less. See, here I may get a very less pressure. Suppose this is your, see, this is your hub. This is your hub. So there, because of the suction action, there is a pressure. Okay. So what we try to do, because of the suction, this particular thing, the water or your air try to come from all the directions. So try to come from all the directions, and there is every possibility of formation of a shock. Okay. There is every formation of a shock here. So what will happen if there is a shock actually? If there is a shock, there is a dissipation of energy. That means there is no transition of energy properly. There is no conversion of energy properly. So that will lead to more amount of power requirement, whatever it may be. So what they try is actually, they try to put what is called as one simple, one guide vane they're going to put like this. Okay. They're going to put a guide vane like this. Okay. Here they're going to put some kind of, they call it as guide vane. This is what is a guide vane. What is the purpose of this guide vane? This guide vane will try to deflect your fluid entering the compressor or a pump, whatever it may be, because they are all power absorbing machines, so that they will break any tendency of shock formation. So I should see, this is not your absolute the fluid velocity V1. Fluid velocity, the fluid will be entering. It's something like I have a fixed set of blades. Those are fixed in such a way that I'm going to give what is called as give a certain amount of turning angle. I'm going to see if there is no whirl, means the fluid will be entering exactly at alpha is equal to 90 or whatever it may be. So instead of that, what I'm going to give, I'm going to give a slightly little twist so that fluid enters at some angle. So fluid enters at some alpha is equal to some angle. So that there is if there is the obstruction, or if there is any obstruction to the flow, or there is any tendency to formation of shocks, so those things are broken, or those possibilities are reduced or minimized. Okay, so the way of doing this particular thing is called as your pre-whirling. So this is called as pre-whirling. So why it is done? So this is done to reduce all these things. Okay. Now, if you want, we can write that also. So pre-whirling is produced by giving the incoming air a small whirl component. Let me write that. So pre-whirling is nothing but it's produced. That is, I'm going to produce this pre-whirling by giving a small whirl component, or by giving the incoming fluid, that is air or whatever it may be, a small whirl component, So using inlet guide vanes. So what are these inlet guide vanes? They are fixed guide vanes. Okay, a positive vane angle produces the free whirl in the direction of the imparallel rotation. That means, say for example, if my alpha is equal to 2 degrees or 5 degrees and all, it will try to produce a free whirl in the direction of rotation. That means if this is the direction of the rotation, it will try to give a small VW in that direction. Okay, it tries to give a small VW in that particular direction. Maybe if I try to write the velocity triangle for this, you will try to understand. What it will be, if I try to write the velocity, let me write the velocity triangle for a no whirl condition. Okay, for a no whirl condition, so this is my V1. Okay, this is my V1, which is also equal to VF1, and I do have your U1, and I do have your VR1. So this is how it is looks like. This is my alpha 1, which is 90, and this is my beta 1. And one more thing you have to be always remember here is, see, U1 is equal to pi d1n by 60. See, your diameter is fixed and speed is also fixed. That means my U1 is fixed value. I can't change this value. Now, whatever the whirling I'm going to give, what is the whirling I'm trying to do? That means I'm going to give a whirl like this. So if I give a whirl, my velocity triangle will become something like this. So my velocity triangle will become something. So this will be my alpha 1. So this will be my V1. I will be having a small value of VW1 here. So earlier for the one in the dark, whatever in the continuous line, whatever first triangle, the VW1 was 0. So here the VW1 was 0. But here, when I try to give a small pre-whirl, what will happen? See, your U1 is still fixed. See, my U1 is fixed actually. So what will happen to your beta? See, beta also will change. So my new velocity triangle will look something like this. See, this will be my U1, this will be my beta 1, and this will be my VR1. So you can closely observe and see that VR1, there's a slight reduction in it. I am getting the VW1 component, a small whirl component I'm trying to get in, and U1 is fixed, so beta 1 value has increased. So beta 1, if I call this as beta 1 dash, so beta 1 dash is greater than your VR1 dash, V1 dash. Let me to understand that this is a different one. So the dash represents the new values of your new values due to pre-whirling at the inlet. Okay, new values at the inlet due to pre-whirling. So the main purpose of the pre-whirling is actually, see, this old velocity triangle, new velocity triangle, the old velocity triangle, energy levels should be the same. the energy should not get dissipated. Or when you try to write the work done equation, see W is equal to, in that case, what will happen? Your VW2 into U2 minus VW1 into U1. So in the previous case, it was only VW2 into U2 because VW1 was 0. I am trying to add a small component, so there is a small reduction in the work. There is a small reduction in the work, but I can avoid the formation of shock or formation of dissipation of heat. You see, VW1 is not a bigger quantity, it's not a bigger number, but it's a very small number. It's a small number. So compared to, say, for example, V1 is equal to some 100 meters per second. Your VW1 may be around 10 meters per second or whatever it may be. So VW1 may be a small component or pre-whirl or whirl component which is introduced, which is given so that I can see. I'm going to use an inlet guidance. I'm going to give a small twist, or I'm going to give a small whirl to the fluid that is entering. Okay. So what we call it as air pre-whirling in the direction of the impeller rotations. See, it's going to reduce the compressor work at the given RPM. Say I'm going to have a rated RPM of 3000 RPM or 3600 RPM. This pre-whirling will definitely reduce. So let me write that also. So the air pre-whirling or the fluid pre-whirling, what it is going to do will reduce. See, pre-whirling in the direction of direction of the impeller rotation, because it's in the clockwise direction. I am giving the pre-whirling in the same direction, in the direction of impeller rotation will reduce. So will reduce the compressor work. Will reduce the compressor work at a given RPM. Okay, at the given RPM, at a given RPM, the given speed, or we call it as at a given RPM or at a given speed. Okay, what is pre-whirl? It's going to counter the impeller rotation. Okay, it's going to counteract in this manner. So what we try to do, see, the pressure of that particular compressor or temperature can be, so what will happen if there is a shock? See, if I have a shock, there is a sudden increase in the pressure and temperature. See, this shock will reduce, will increase your pressure and temperature, which is not desirable. So what are the inputs? See, I suppose I expect my inlet temperature at the compressor to be of maybe 25 degrees or 26 degrees and the pressure of around 1 bar or whatever, 1 atmosphere. If there is a formation of the shock, this pressure and temperature will increase like anything. So that is disastrous. So what will happen? It will have an impact on the material of your compressor blade or whatever it may be. So when I have this pre-whirling, this pressure and temperature are kept under control. Even though I have to do a little bit of, I'm paying a little bit of penalty. So that penalty, there's a reduction in the work. So even though I'm paying a little bit of penalty, but I'm able to safeguard my compressor or the turbo machine from the disasters. Okay, that is a major reason of going for this pre-whirling. Okay, so once you have seen this, so so if you go by your syllabus, so these are the things. So slip factor, your power input factor, or need for pre-whirling, all those things. So once you have seen this, so we have something called as the blade exit angle. Okay, that is beta or discharge angle. So what is its effect on your work done or energy? Okay, so that is the thing which we are supposed to discuss next. So the effect of the blade discharge angle, that is your beta 2, okay, on your energy transfer E or your head coefficient H. What is H actually? H is equal to your energy divided by R, W by G. So if I'm able to plot anything over here and the effect of this beta on this particular, what's happening? So what is the effect of whether it is axial flow machine or radial flow machine? I need to look into it. So let us look into this being a compressible flow machine. Let us try to look into what is the effect of this particular beta. Now let us try to write the work done expression. Then we'll try to get it actually. So before that, what we will try to do, we'll try to write the your exit or what we call it as a velocity triangle. Okay, for the radial flow machine. Okay, so for the velocity triangle for it, first let us write the velocity triangle for it. Okay, now so before writing the velocity triangle, I need to write the blade for it. So I have the blade. Now onwards, I'm not going to write a complete blade. I will just put a curve. And what is the direction of the rotation for a pump or a compressor? It is a clockwise direction. Now, this is the inlet 1 and this is the outlet 2. So 1 is the inlet velocity triangle. 2, I am going to draw the outlet velocity triangle. So I will draw the inlet velocity triangle. It will be something like this. If there is a free one, so this is my V1, okay, and so this is my VR, and I do have the U1, okay, and I will try to draw the VF1 and VW1. So this is perpendicular to it. This is my VF1 and this will be my VW1. Okay, this is in this direction. So this will be my alpha 1, this will be my beta 1. I am able to draw the inlet velocity triangle. So similarly, I can draw the outlet velocity triangle. So outlet velocity triangle I can draw like this. So this is my, this is a bigger one comparatively to inlet triangle. So this is my V2 or VR2, sorry, this is my VR2, okay, and this is my V2, and your U2 is comparatively bigger because it is a radial flow machine. This is my U2, and let me try to draw the your VF2. This is perpendicular to it. This is the VF2 component. This is my VW2. This is your alpha 2 and your beta 2. So this is your the velocity triangle. So here, if you look at it closely, observe what is it actually. Your D2 is greater than your D1. So because of that, your exit, your peripheral velocity at U2 is greater than this. So this is we call it as A. And one more thing, if you closely observe, the velocity triangle at 2 is greater than the velocity triangle at 1 because it is because of the energy levels. These 2 points you have to consider for a radial flow machine or any kind of a machine. So inlet and exit. Suppose I have a condition where your VW1 is 0. So you have a pre-whirl condition, that is, this is a pre-whirling is there. That means there is a VW1 component is there. Suppose if VW1 is equal to 0 for a condition, if VW1 is equal to 0, how my velocity triangle will look like for that condition if I try to draw. So if I try to draw the velocity triangle for that condition, so this is my blade, okay. If I try to draw the velocity triangle for that, it will be a simple right angle triangle. Okay, it will be a simple right angle triangle at the inlet. This is my U1, this is my V1 is equal to VF1 because my VW1 is equal to 0. This is my alpha 1 is equal to 90 degrees. This is my beta 1 and this is my VR1. This is at inlet 1, this is outlet 2. So the outlet triangle will remain the same. I am not going to change it because it depends on the beta. So I have the beta 2. Okay, this is my VR2. Okay, here I am going to check for different conditions of your VR2, beta 2. We will check into that. So what will happen? What will happen to the exit velocity triangle? So then this is my beta 2, V2, and this is my U2. Okay, this is my U2, and I have different conditions there. So you have your VF2, that is your flow, and this is your VW2, this is your alpha 2, this is your beta. I have the same velocity transfer. Now what we are trying to study here, effect of blade discharge angle. That means I am going to move this beta 2 angle for different conditions. I'll check for different conditions of beta 2. Now if you closely observe here, what is the value of beta 2? Beta 2, see, for this kind of a triangle, beta 2 is less than 90 degrees. It may be 40 degrees, it may be 50 degrees, it may be 60 degrees, whatever it may be. So VW1 is equal to 0 means no free will condition. So I have, so here it is free will condition. So I have the pre-whirling condition velocity triangle and I have the no pre-whirling condition. Okay. So I can study for any one of the things as one of the special case, I can do that. Now, when you have such situations, what will happen to your beta 2? I'm going to vary this beta 2 for different conditions. So if you closely observe and you can classify, I can divide it into three classifications. One is beta 2 less than 90 degrees, beta 2 greater than 90 degrees, and beta 2 equal to 90 degrees. I can clearly get my conditions for this particular thing. That means if I try to write it, so variation of blade angle, let me try that. Variation of the blade angles, the blade angle beta 2. Okay. So let me write that. So if I try to have these conditions, so what is it? So let me write that. So if suppose this is my tip, this is my hub, okay, I'm going to have the blade for this, okay, different conditions. So all these conditions I'm going to take. So three different conditions. Three different conditions, one being beta less than 90, the other being beta greater than 90, and other one beta 2 is equal to 90. Suppose I have a condition where beta 2 is less than 90. Then what will happen to your blade? See, the blade will be twisted in this direction. See, the blades will be twisted in this direction. What is it actually? So if I try to draw a tangent, see, if I try to draw a tangent, so this is the tangent. I try to draw a tangent for this blade at any given point, and if I try to draw the angle for it, so this is the angle. Okay, this is the value of your beta 2. So for this condition, the beta 2 is less than 90. Beta 2 is less than 90. Then what will happen if beta 2 is equal to 90? Beta 2 is equal to 90 means what will happen? So the blades are twisted in such a way that it is exactly like this. Here the blades are twisted something like this. It is exactly like this. What is it at any given point? If I try to draw the tangent, so this is the tangent to the blade, what I have written, okay, at this particular point, this is the tangent, okay. So I have drawn a tangent to it, and if I try to draw the angle, okay, this is the direction of this particular thing. So this beta 2 is 90 degrees. So I have a condition beta 2 is equal to 90 degrees. So I have the blades twisted in such a condition, they are twisted in opposite direction. So they are like this, they are twisted in opposite direction. Okay, then if I try to draw a tangent for this, try to draw a tangent for this and try to measure the angle. Okay, try to measure the angle. This will be the, I am trying to measure the angle in only one direction. Okay, so this is your beta 2 greater than 90 degrees. See, all are rotating in positive direction. I am trying to measure the angle in the same direction, same rotation, whatever it may be. So now, depending upon how you are going to twist your blade, okay, twist your blade. These are something you see in compressors. You can clearly observe this particular thing in an impeller, whether it is the beta 2, that is exit angle. So that is exit angle. It has an impact. It has an impact on your work. That's what we are going to prove from these expressions. So this is how the construction looks like. Beta 2 when it is less than 90, when beta 2 is exactly 90, when beta 2 is greater than 90. So for these three conditions, so we have given the name. So when it is beta 2 is less than 90 degrees, we call that as, that is, I am going to turn the angle in the opposite direction to the rotation. That is, it is called as backward curved vane. That is BACK, backward curved vanes. These are called as backward curved vanes. When beta 2 is exactly 90 degrees are perpendicular, they are called as radial vanes. Then if beta 2 is twisted in the same direction of rotation, we call that as forward curved vanes. So we have three conditions. One is beta 2 less than 90, which is called as backward curved vane. When beta 2 is exactly perpendicular at the direction, the exit direction or exit condition, it is called as a radial vanes or radial curved vanes, and it is direction in the same direction of the rotation. If it is curved in the same direction of rotation, we call that as forward curved vane. So when you have such things, so what will be the corresponding velocity triangles? So velocity triangles are also going to change. We will have a huge impact on these particular things. So the velocity triangle for a forward curved vane and maybe a radial curved vane and your backward curved vane will be different. Okay. So to get into that particular velocity triangles, let us try to look into the expressions. So what are the work done expressions which are important here? So if you try to write the work done expressions from the Euler expression or Euler equation. So from the work done expression, see work done from the Euler equation is given by, from the Euler equation is given by, what is the expression? We have W is equal to VW2 into U2 minus VW1 into U1. Suppose if my VW1 is equal to 0, I have a condition. If VW1 is equal to 0, that is no whirl condition. What will happen? So I am going to end up with W is equal to VW2 into U2. So what is it actually? Here it is nothing but it is a positive for C. It is a work absorbing. It's a work absorbing machine. It's a work absorbing machine. So what is this actually? It's a negative. It's a negative. That is work absorbing machine. I am trying to absorb more amount of energy. Suppose the same thing if I try to write in terms of head actually. That is, we call it as Euler head. This is Euler work Euler energy. I can write it as VW2 into U2 by G. What is actually? This is in terms of the head developed. So if I try to write it in terms of energy, I can write in terms of head developed, whatever. Okay. Now, so as I told that we have to look this particular condition for different beta angles. Okay. Now, what are these beta angles? Those beta angles are one being less than 90 degrees.